I honestly just got so triggered by Caitlin Clark's golf debut. It is the fault of the WNBA. LPGA just did everything that the WNBA should have been doing this season.
What happens when the greatest asset a struggling sports league has ever seen is treated not like a savior, but like the primary enemy? Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA as a phenomenon, but her presence immediately pulled back the curtain on a hidden civil war. A battle fought not just on the court with cheap shots and hard hits, but in the bank accounts and the boardrooms of the entire league. The first signs of trouble weren't whispers. They were violent, public cheap shots that left the league's new face sprawled on the hardwood. The moment Clark hit the floor after a stunningly aggressive away-from-the-ball hit, it wasn't just a foul, it was a visible declaration of war against the league's designated future. This story is about the untold cost of that stardom. It is about the staggering money Clark created, the shocking executive claim that she should be grateful for her wealth, and the top-level scandal that has made the prospect of a 2026 player walk out frighteningly real. The WNBA desperately wanted its star, but they were never ready for the billion-dollar storm that followed. Less than a dozen games into her professional career, the debate surrounding Clark reached an absolute fever pitch. Instead of focusing on veteran dominance or team standings, the prevailing conversation centered entirely on the relentless physical treatment Clark was facing. The conflict erupted in full view after a game where Chicago Sky's Chennedy Carter delivered a foul so aggressive, so brazen, that it instantly redefined the narrative of the season. The play was a non-basketball act of aggression. Carter, seemingly fueled by something beyond competition, ran directly toward Clark and shoulder-checked her to the floor. Crucially, this happened away from where the basketball was being inbounded, making the action clearly intentional and outside the bounds of normal play. The incident was immediately controversial because the officials on the court initially deemed the aggressive shove only a common foul and did not even bother to review the play. This immediate negligence from the officiating crew was the match that lit the fire. The non-call fueled widespread outrage and a full-blown public outcry that lasted the entire weekend, forcing the league's hand. Only the following day, after the viral clip dominated every news cycle, did the WNBA finally upgrade the action to a flagrant one-violation foul. This reactive posture, moving only when forced by fan pressure, confirmed the widespread suspicion that Clark was indeed being unfairly targeted and that the league was reluctant to proactively protect her. Critics and fans alike immediately questioned whether enough was being done to ensure the safety of the league's biggest draw, or if the physicality was being tacitly encouraged as a form of natural competitive evolution. The tension was visibly amplified by the reaction on the Chicago bench. Clark's former collegiate rival, Angel Reese, was caught on camera appearing to applaud the foul. This added a new layer of drama, transforming a standard sports rivalry into a genuine, highly publicized feud. Reese had previously claimed that she and Clark don't hate each other, but the applause strongly suggested a level of disdain that had emerged since they both joined the professional ranks, fueled by the media attention and the perception that Clark was unfairly overshadowing her peers. Adding to the complexity, the arrival of the superstar rookie also spurred a visible divide among established veterans. WNBA legends like Diana Taurasi and Cheryl Swoops cautioned that Clark would face a difficult transition period upon entering the WNBA. While intended as experienced observations, a sector of fans weaponized these comments to create an inflammatory narrative. The established league was opposing and resenting the new face of the sport. This created a profound dilemma for the WNBA. If they protected Clark, they would confirm the perception that she needed special treatment. If they didn't, they risked her injury or allowed the product to become defined by dangerous roughhousing. The league tried to sweep the initial targeting under the rug, but the pattern of no calls was relentless. The officials stayed silent, leaving Clark defenseless, which led directly to the next escalation. The problem quickly moved beyond singular cheap shots and became a systemic crisis of officiating. Critics warned that if the WNBA commissioner permitted roughhousing to be the brand, the league would squander all the peak acceleration and lift that Clark has brought. The frustration was palpable, both among fans and Clark herself. The player, who currently ranks high among rookies in fouls drawn, stated frankly after one loss that everybody is physical with me, they get away with things that probably other people don't get away with. Clark's frustration was visible during games. Highlight reels documented moments of pressure boiling over, including her screaming at refs and getting teed up or letting her frustration show by headbutting the ball after a non-call. She was taking hits without a whistle, clashing with rivals, and fighting for every inch of the court. The league's failure to protect its star paved the way for a dangerous, high-stakes solution, the rise of a teammate vigilante. Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham embraced the designated enforcer role as added protection for Clark, a decision that resonated immediately with the highly engaged fan base. The defining moment of this new dynamic occurred during a feisty matchup against the Connecticut Sun. After Clark was allegedly hit with an eye poke by J.C. Sheldon, Cunningham delivered a flagrant foul on Sheldon and was immediately thrown out of the game. The market response to Cunningham's act of defense was immediate and powerful. The WNBA's structural negligence was inadvertently training the audience to reward high-drama, rule-breaking vigilantism. Cunningham saw an immediate surge in her Instagram followers and jersey sales immediately after videos of her defending Clark went viral. Hashtags like Justice for Cunningham trended widely, confirming that fans were rewarding the player who stood up for Clark when the league's officials would not. This commercial explosion proved that the audience values immediate, visceral loyalty and protection, demonstrating a dangerous trend where the league's structural failures create massive, profitable conflict. While the public narrative focused heavily on external resentment from some peers, the loyalty displayed by Clark's immediate team, including Cunningham and Lexi Hull, was absolute. These teammates not only defended her on the court but followed her off-court to support her non-basketball ventures. The violence on the court was just a symptom, however, of a far deeper, systemic illness. Because while Clark was taking hits and her teammates were fighting for her, the league was quietly raking in money at a rate nobody predicted. But when the players demanded their share of the billions, the real war began. Clark's arrival triggered an economic tsunami that fundamentally transformed the league's financial reality, moving the WNBA toward an unprecedented valuation of roughly $1.27 billion. The numbers are staggering and unavoidable. Her debut season sparked record attendance, a 264% increase in Indiana Fever home game attendance, and a phenomenal 1,200% rise in merchandise sales. The Indiana Fever, riding the wave of Clark's popularity, soared in value by an astonishing 273%, reaching $335 million per. Furthermore, the league's media rights deal, currently valued at approximately $60 million annually, is projected to jump dramatically to at least $200 million per year starting in 2026, a 250% increase. This massive sudden boom accelerated a simmering labor crisis. The players, aware of the new money pouring in, demanded a larger piece of the pie. This collective dissent was made public during the All-Star weekend when players took the court wearing shirts that read, "Pay us what you owe us," protesting the league's existing revenue split. The core structural failure exposed by Clark's arrival is the breathtaking discrepancy in revenue sharing. NBA players receive about 50% of their league's revenue, a number built into the salary cap. WNBA players, despite riding a massive wave of growth and competing at the highest level, receive less than 10%. This disparity is underscored by the difference in entry-level pay. The WNBA rookie minimum is a minuscule $66,000 compared to the NBA's rookie minimum of $1.27 million. The WNBA has historically cited operating losses to justify low pay, a common business claim. However, the contradiction of this argument became clear when team valuations began to skyrocket. The massive increase in team asset value proved that while the league might be operating at an annual cash flow loss, it is highly profitable as an asset and a long-term investment. Clark's success made the sub-10% revenue share morally indefensible and accelerated the timeline for a definitive, high-stakes labor confrontation. Her impact didn't just boost the league, it exposed the financial structure as being designed to capture future capital at the expense of current labor. The money crisis provided the perfect fuel for player discontent, but the entire system was set to ignite when one player leaked details of a private conversation, exposing a devastating lack of respect from the league's top office. Minnesota Lynx star Napheesa Collier, a leader in the WNBPA, delivered a scathing exit interview where she accused WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert of providing the worst leadership in the world and being negligent. The core of her explosive claim focused on how Engelbert allegedly dismissed the argument for higher player salaries. Collier claimed that when she raised the issue of star players generating massive revenue but making little money in their first 4 years, the commissioner allegedly responded with a breathtaking claim. Collier alleged that Engelbert told her Clark should be grateful she makes $60 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. This alleged statement was catastrophic because it fundamentally devalued Clark's independent market power. Clark was already a viral phenomenon, an endorsement magnet before she was drafted, demonstrating her intrinsic market value independent of the professional league. The alleged comment suggested that leadership failed to grasp that Clark was the economic catalyst, not just a beneficiary of the system. Collier further claimed that Engelbert told players they should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal I got them. The immediate fallout was immense. Commissioner Engelbert attempted damage control ahead of the WNBA finals, denying the quote publicly. She claimed she was disheartened by how Collier characterized their conversations, stating flatly, "I did not make those comments." Engelbert instead praised Clark, calling her a transformational player who has brought in tens of millions of new fans. However, the damage was done, and the verdict from the locker room was decisive. Clark herself intervened, offering measured but firm support for her peer. During her exit interview, Clark publicly supported Collier, stating that the Lynx star made a lot of very valid points and emphasized the critical need for great leadership in this time across all levels. Clark's measured support for Collier amounted to a public vote of no confidence in the league's top management. Her intervention, at the most important moment in the league's history, served to unite the players and confirm their deepest fears that the WNBA's executive leadership did not truly value its talent and viewed the growth as their personal accomplishment, not a shared success. The collapse of trust between players and the WNBA hierarchy fueled the greatest existential threat the league has ever faced, a labor stoppage coinciding with the rise of a credible competing league. The negotiations for a new collective bargaining agreement, CBA, are currently deadlocked, with the deadline looming on October 31st. This delay raises the serious prospect of a WNBA season in 2026 being in jeopardy due to a potential lockout. The concern among players is real, with Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham openly stating that a potential lockout is kind of where it's headed. This tension is magnified by the existence of a high-profile alternative, Unrivaled Basketball. Co-founded by Nafisa Collier, the player who publicly exposed the commissioner's alleged remarks, Unrivaled provides a non-WNBA platform that is actively finalizing rosters. The presence of a credible alternative league acts as the ultimate bargaining chip for the players. If management continues to resist calls for a higher revenue share by suggesting players should be grateful, the WNBA now has a strategic exit route. The league risks losing talent to a platform established by one of its primary critics, which would completely undermine its new media rights deal. Collier's timing of the leadership exposé can be viewed not only as an expression of anger but as a strategic maneuver to delegitimize the WNBA, making her own project, Unrivaled, infinitely more attractive during the critical CBA negotiation period. The WNBA is now negotiating against the clock and a ready-made backup plan, putting the entire $1 billion future of the league at risk. While the WNBA system actively threatened its own future through leadership failure and structural injustice, other professional sports were watching closely. They understood Clark's unprecedented market power perfectly, and they rolled out the red carpet to show the WNBA exactly how a superstar should be treated. Clark's presence at the Annika Pro-Am LPGA tournament proved unequivocally that her star power transcends basketball. Her appearances drew immense crowds, sometimes 5 people deep surrounding the first tee box, demonstrating her ability to bring massive attention to an entirely different sport. This effect was so pronounced that the Golf Channel provided unprecedented live look-ins and dedicated coverage for a non-competitive round, a move unheard of in Pro-Am events. The quantification of this external validation provides a damning contrast to the WNBA's internal chaos. Clark's presence led to a 591% increase in the tournament's Instagram views year over year, alongside a 121% spike in website traffic. Nelly Korda, a top-ranked golfer who played alongside Clark, openly recognized this phenomenon, stating that Clark moves the direction of women's sports. Crucially, LPGA leadership, including Annika Sorenstam, openly discussed how to capitalize on this attention, acknowledging that Clark brings an extra buzz and more people to watch the sport. They adapted quickly, even creating kid-only autograph areas after adults overwhelmed children the previous year, demonstrating a protective, proactive approach to managing her celebrity. This enthusiastic embrace by the LPGA serves as the perfect rhetorical tool to highlight the WNBA's mismanagement. The LPGA's actions prove that Clark's value is universal, and that the WNBA's internal conflict, from the physical targeting on the court to the executive devaluation, is a self-inflicted wound. The contrast between the LPGA celebrating and adapting for Clark and the WNBA dealing with internal resentment and claims of ingratitude confirms the narrative that the basketball league failed both to protect its star and to fully appreciate her market worth. Caitlin Clark forced the WNBA to grow faster than it was ready to, and her arrival immediately brought the league's systemic failures into the unforgiving light of a billion-dollar spotlight. The league is now grappling with a trilogy of interconnected crises. First, the on-court targeting was not just random aggression, but the physical manifestation of deep resentment and an officiating system that was slow to protect its most valuable player. This negligence inadvertently rewarded rule-breaking and high drama. Second, the massive financial boom evidenced by the skyrocketing team valuations and the historic new media deal exposed the structural failure of the WNBA's 10% pay model, confirming the players' belief that they are not being fairly compensated for the success they generate. Finally, the alleged executive betrayal, culminating in the shocking claims that Clark should simply be grateful for the platform, shattered the already fragile trust between players and leadership, triggering the threat of a labor stoppage. The WNBA is currently at a critical crossroads. They finally have the billions flowing in, but they have created a level of internal conflict so toxic, so public, and so financially explosive that it threatens to collapse the structure from the inside. The question now is not about Clark's talent, but whether the WNBA's leaders can abandon their self-destructive internal politics, stop targeting the superstar who saved them, and finally recognize the true value of their own labor. The future of the WNBA doesn't depend on the players, it depends on whether its leadership can finally step up or risk watching their billion-dollar boom crumble into the biggest, most chaotic bust in sports history.